It's time to take a deep breath because we're ready to actually make a big step forward, and that is to go ahead and close the books. Now you have to make sure that all of your housekeeping is done, that you've printed everything that you need, that all of your accounts are reconciled, and that you've posted everything. Now, if you're using the automatic posting method, you shouldn't have to worry about this. But if you're doing manual posting, don't forget to go down to Tasks, System, and choose to post if there's anything outstanding. If you need to change your posting method, remember that can be done by going to the Maintain menu and choosing Company Info. With that said, it's time to go ahead and move forward. Now we're again going to play a little magic with the clock here. I'm going to go ahead and change the system date. And because we're going to be closing for the end of the year, I'm actually going to move to the next year. And I know most people don't work on the 1st, but we'll go ahead and choose that anyway. And likewise, I'm going to change my accounting period by double-clicking at the top and moving to the same accounting period, which is January 1st. Once again, because Peachtree is trying to keep us honest and on top of things, it's going to ask us if we want to print our reports. We're going to say no because we're assuming that we've already done all of this. It's also going to ask about running the internal accounting review. Now, if you've never done this and if you're unsure, you can go ahead and say yes and run through that process as well. We're going to say no. There we go. Our period is changed, and now we're ready to go up to Tasks, all the way down to System, and this time we're going to choose the Year-End Wizard. This, of course, is a wizard that's going to take us through several steps. It does tell us what our current open years are, 2009 and 2010. It also tells us our payroll tax years are the same. Now remember that in Peachtree, these are two different things. So it's talking about the current open fiscal year and the payroll year. We'll click Next. Then it gives us options to close. Do we want to close fiscal and payroll tax years? There may be an option to do just the fiscal year or just the payroll tax year. We'll go ahead and choose to do both. It's asking us again if we want to print our year-end fiscal reports. Normally I recommend that you already have done this, but you should at least take a look at what it's offering and ensure for one last time that you have everything done. Once you close, you won't be able to print these, so it is important to go ahead and do it now. As they say, din din, do it now, do it now. Once we've either printed or chosen not to print our reports, we're again presented with the options to do an internal accounting review. Now, as I've said, this is a good idea. We're just not going to step through it with our particular file because we don't have enough transactions that it makes a lot of sense, and because if we're following good processes, we shouldn't necessarily have anything to look at. But I do recommend that you step through it. It's going to help you find anything that's kind of outstanding or erroneous before you close the books. We'll go ahead and skip by clicking Next. Peachtree wants us to go ahead and make a backup copy. As it says, as it closes the year, you have to create at least one backup file of your company data and customized forms. That way, if anything goes wrong or if you do have to go back for some reason, you'll be able to recover from that. Notice that the Next button is not available until you make a backup, so there's no way around it. We have to click on the backup button. I'm going to go ahead and click on Backup. This is the very simple backup process that is also part of backing up anytime. You should be backing up your data on a regular basis, not just at year end. I think the biggest or maybe the saddest thing that I ever see is when people give me this freaked out call that says, oh my gosh, I think I just lost my file. Maybe they had a hard drive failure, or maybe they were broken into, a computer was stolen. It could be a lot of different things. But the best way, and in fact the only way to make sure that you have good reliable data is to have multiple backups. Normally what we recommend is that you rotate them. In other words, let's say that you're backing up every day. You should have 6 copies. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you'll have one for the following Monday. You're going to keep all of those copies except one off-site. In other words, it doesn't do you any good to have a backup tape sitting next to your desk if your business catches fire and everything burns down. The critical part is that you have recent backups, that you have multiple versions of it, and that they're kept off-site. The second reason for that is because sometimes we'll say, yeah, I backed up my data yesterday, but what if the corruption happened 2 days ago? Now you're stuck because your backup has the error in it. So you can kind of see the logic behind all of this. Now, there's no perfect plan for it. A lot of people do a daily backup, but if you have a smaller business, maybe at least be sure that you do a weekly backup. Follow these rules and we won't get any of those really, really sad stories when people have to try to recover a lot of really difficult accounting data. When you do a backup in Peachtree, it's simply a matter of backing up the company. We access this through the year-end wizard, but you also could have simply gone to the File menu and chosen Backup. It brings up this same box, so I'll click Backup. And I'm going to choose a location, and just for our purposes, I'm going to go to the desktop. Hopefully, I don't have to say that you normally would not make a backup copy to your desktop. You want to make your backup to something that is outside of the computer that you're currently working on. Again, hard drive failure is one of the most common problems that we have. And if your backup is on the same drive as your regular file, I think you can see that that's not going to do you much good. So I'm just going to do it to the desktop for this particular purpose. Usually you want to use some other type of media. By default, it wants to give it the name of your company, followed by a date, which is fine. We'll click Save. And hopefully it'll take just a few seconds. It will tell you what the estimated file size is going to be, then say OK and just wait. Once this step is finished, then it will take us back to the year-end wizard. Now, just as a reminder, if you're accessing backup on a regular basis through your File menu, it'll simply bring you back to your regular Peachtree window. Because we're going through the year-end wizard, we'll continue on, and you'll see that now our next button is available. This is showing us what our next fiscal years will be. Peachtree keeps 2 fiscal years open. You also can choose to display the current fiscal year as read-only or the next fiscal year. We'll leave these defaults as they are and click Next again. At this point of your year-end transaction adjustments should all be complete. Remember, everything needs to be done. So it's telling us again that we're about to close the January through December 2009 fiscal year and payroll tax years. After closing, and I'm going to go ahead and read this, your open years will be 2010 and 2011. This is perfect, and it's just confirming one more time, so we'll do another Next. This is another important screen, and I kind of wish they would put it in red because now we're ready to start the process. The important part is where it says Important. You cannot cancel the year-end wizard after this point. You can't shut off your computer, you can't try to close it down, you can't try to go back. This can take quite a while. So make sure that you have time to get it done, and also make sure that you are really ready to close. We are, so with one last deep breath, let's click Begin Close. If you did not complete all of your housekeeping chores and you have open transactions, out-of-balance accounts, or other issues, I've tried to help identify these for you, but if you have those, Peachtree simply can't close the period. Doing so would violate GAAP. In that case, you get a warning. But it's kind of strange. When you click OK, Peachtree has to finish the wizard. Like I said before, it can't be interrupted. So it's going to go ahead and complete. What you need to remember is that once it's done, you need to go back, restore your file, fix whatever's wrong, and then run the wizard again. When the wizard completes its process, whether it was actually successful or not, it's going to show you a congratulations screen. It's a little bit odd, but you just have to pay attention. If you did not receive any error messages through the process, you're welcome to go ahead and just click Finish. If you did receive an error message, this is when you want to go ahead and click Finish, but then go back, restore your file, find the problems, fix them, and then run the wizard again. Since I had some issues, I need to go ahead and run a restore. So I'll go ahead and click Finish. And if you ever need to restore from backup, the good news is it's a fairly simple process. You simply go up to your File menu and choose Restore. You need to select the file that you want to restore, so I'll click on Browse and go to my desktop. And choose the backup file that I want. Remember that Peachtree backup files always end in the PTB for Peachtree Backup, and they should have a date on them. I'll go ahead and double click to select it. Then I can click on Next. It will ask me if I want to restore to an existing company or to a brand new company. Now, it's important that you make the correct choice here. If you restore to an existing company, you will overwrite the data that you currently have. That may be exactly what you want to do, but then again, you have to be very careful with that, especially if you're working with multiple companies. You also can restore to a new company and create a new company file. If we look at the file structure here, where it tells us where it's going to be putting it, remember that by default, Peachtree is installed under Program Files, Sage Software, in a Peachtree folder. Within that Peachtree folder, there's a folder called Company, and that's where every company that you have will exist. If you only have one company, then you should just have one folder in that. In our case, it's the abbreviated version of the Irlandessa Spa. But if you're managing multiple companies with your computer using Peachtree, then you will have multiple folders within the company folder. This is where you have to just pay very careful attention and make sure that you don't overwrite existing good data with other data or with data from another company. Because I only have the one company on my computer, I'm going to go ahead and choose an existing company. Then I'll click on Next. When you're choosing what to restore, you always want to restore your company data. If you do not choose company data, you'll end up with a company file, but it will have absolutely nothing in it. So company data is critical. If you have also created customized forms, which we have in this course, then you want to make sure that you include that, because all of your customized forms are also held within the Peachtree file. If you don't select this, your customizations will not be restored as part of the process, but all of your data will. If you're working with web transactions, you also have the opportunity to include those. I'm going to select Company Data and Customized Forms and click on Next. That's all we have to do. It's now simply going to reconfirm what we want, that we are recovering from a certain file to a certain company, and then we'll click Finish and wait for it to complete. If there are any conflicts with things like forms, it will ask you which version you want to keep. This is asking me if I want to overwrite the existing form with an older version. In this case, I'm going to say no. When the restore process is complete, you should be presented with a regular traditional Peachtree window. So what we're able to do when we close out the end of year is actually make sure that everything is in perfect shape. All of our transactions are taken care of, all of our accounts are reconciled, everything's in balance, and all of the general accounting principles have been followed. If it can't do that, Peachtree will need to tell you that there's an error and you will need to restore your file. Restoring your file, fortunately, is something we can always do because we can't run through the wizard without having it make a backup. That really is a good safeguard. Whether you're backing up as part of the year-end wizard or just to have a regular copy, it's always important to make sure that you do this in a smart way. Make sure that you have more than one copy. In case you're backing up the errored file, you can go back one more. Also make sure that you're not backing up to the same hard drive that your regular file's on, and also keep off-site copies. All of these are just really good ideas for keeping your data secure. At this point, when you're all finished closing out, you can take that final deep breath and know that you've accomplished a lot using Peachtree Accounting. From the start and creating files and vendors, working with customers and transactions, all the way through to making sure that you have good, solid accounting backing up your financial statements. Now that the books are closed, you can take that cleansing breath and relax and say, phew, it's all over and I'm done. Well, not exactly. Remember that accounting is an ongoing process, and unless your business is closing its doors, you're going to repeat the process we've talked about in this course over and over and over again. And that's a good thing because you're contributing to the growth and the success of your company. Throughout this course, Total Trainings, Mastering Sage Peachtree 2009 Pro, you've learned a lot of different skills. You've learned how to create a company file, how to set up products and services, how to go through the sales process, how to receive and deposit money, even how to customize reports and close the books. And that's a lot to learn. Now, if you're not an accounting professional, I've given you a few tips throughout the course that hopefully will help you understand the concepts. In your Project Files folder, there's also some supplemental materials, including a terminology sheet and some keyboard shortcuts to help you get accustomed to both the accounting side and the Peachtree side. I'm sure you won't need those for very long, because as you work with Peachtree, you'll become very proficient very quickly. In the meantime, though, you should take pride in knowing that you've completed the course and you're ready to start working with accounting in Peachtree. And that means that you can also begin to enjoy the fruits of your labors.